I thought I could at least get started. How many of you are aware about what VizChitra is? Most hands raised. How many did not know about VizChitra till yesterday or a week ago? Nice. Okay. So for those folks who are a bit more new, VizChitra is a data visualization community. Anybody who's interested in data visualization in India. It was created by a bunch of DataViz enthusiasts, some of whom you will meet in the panel today. The idea is to really give everybody a space to come and nerd out, geek out about DataViz, talk about challenges, talk about job opportunities, talk about what does the future of DataViz look like, and then also share interesting ways in which different people in different spaces are making data visualization. So that's the essence of VizChitra. As of now, VizChitra has a WhatsApp community, which is shockingly more than 1,000 people. So a big round of applause to everybody who's and if you are not part of the WhatsApp community, meet any of the people who are on the panel or me, and I'll be happy to get you added. Apart from the WhatsApp community, we have a big milestone for us, which is the conference, and that is going to be on June 26th and 27th and 28th. 26th. You're welcome to yeah. But yeah, 27th and 28th of June. 27th is a conference day. We'll have a bunch of talks, birds of feather sessions, panels, etc. And then on 28th we'll have workshops. So the good news, especially for the people who are in this room, is that the tickets are live. I have not told anyone else. Tickets are live. Early bird has, I think, about 40 tickets. We also have tickets specifically for students or recent graduates. So if you graduated less than a year back, take the student ticket. If you are looking for more support, like if you feel like, hey, this amount is still more and I want some more support, we will be launching a pool of diversity tickets as well.
Scholarship.
And we also diversity scholarships.
So fully paid tickets,
yes.
Which are supported by some members of the community, as well as we've put together some pool of money to sponsor 25 fully paid tickets to bring in, a diverse pool of candidates. But there'll be an application that will be live next week. But as of today, early birds
up. Student.
Yeah.
All right.
Just that.
And what else am I forgetting about? Yeah, we also have an option in case you're not able to make it to the conference, but you want to support one of the diversity candidates, one of the folks who may not have the funds to come attend. You also have an option to get a ticket for someone else, and we can help you either find that person, or you're always welcome to say, I know this person should attend VizChitra, I'm going to go get a ticket for them. More than welcome to do that. And of course, obligatory reminder that VizChitra is a community event, which means that we are really supported based on the benevolence and the love of many different organizations that sponsor us. So thanks to Visual Labs, thanks to Nutanix, and many other organizations that we hope would sponsor us. If any of you are in organizations who are willing to put in some amount and help us out, you know who to reach, people on the panel, me, others, or on the website. Yeah. With this, I think that's all that I should be rambling about.
Call for volunteers.
Call for volunteers is
no, go end me.
Okay, I go for volunteers.
First we entice you, then we trap.
Alright, with this I'm gonna kick it off with first just introducing our venue host, Epic World. And maybe Karthik, you could come in and talk a bit about what is Epic World, what are they doing, and then we'll get started with the panel. Yeah. So big round of applause for Karthik.
Thank you. Welcome everybody. I know I'm standing between you and a hot panel, so I will get out of you very quickly. We are Epic World. This is the space that was designed for events like this, and we are very thrilled. This is sort of also our first native Epic World event in the office.
Woohoo!
We share our office with Elevar Equity, which is a social impact venture capital private equity fund, and Epic World, which is a platform, which is not a fund, but we work closely with them. Our mission is to elevate entrepreneurial households, a cohort that we think are underserved around the global south. We work on this through capital strategies, through various types of products, a lot of them driven by data. We're very data driven. And we do DataViz every single day. We love maps the most, we love other charts, and so on. Because of the whole physical nature of trying to drive affordable healthcare, education, financial services, agri-linkages, and other sort of core solutions to these families that are, don't have access to formal solutions around this. Location becomes a very important factor, so maps across all geographies and hyperlocal granularity are super important to us. My team, Shilpi leads product, Nikhil is my chief of staff and heads solution delivery to companies who want to be more data driven about their solutions. And I have Supriya, our data analyst, and we have a few other folks who are not here today. So with that, Rasagy has been our design advisor for a long time. I think before any of them joined, the first hire was, of course, how do I get these ideas out of my head onto sketches. So Rasagy has been involved with us for over 2 years, right from the beginning. So he knows the space well, and welcome all. And I have left the only thing I can do is get rid of business cards. I have no idea why business cards are printed, so I kept them there, hoping that somebody will use them. They have my email ID, and they have ways to reach me. So if you want to reach me, or there's Nikhil or Shilpi or Supriya at Epic World, please write to us if you are interested in our mission. Thank you, and have fun.
All right, with this, we are going to get started with the stuff that you came here for, the panel. To get the panel started, I'm going to introduce our host and mera dost, Aman. Aman is a, Aman is a,
We made it stand to very tired.
Aman is a hard person to introduce, so I would say that he works at Revisual Labs, and I say works because he is one of those elusive people in the league of extraordinary humans that do design, code, makes maps, makes charts, writes, JavaScript, everything. And so the elusive unicorn that you've generally heard of, here is one of the species. So catch him later if you're curious about all of this mix. Before Revisual Labs, he was at Writers, he did an internship there, and then he studied human-centered design at Shrishti. Shrishti folks in the house? I saw some Shrishti folks here. Yeah. So, hello. And then, of course, I have admired him for a lot of the maps work that he's done, and we also share our disappointment in the lack of documentation in CAD. So, with that, I will let Aman kick it off. A big round of applause for him. Yes, mics.
ये on कैसे होना है? Volunteers. Yeah.
Hello.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Okay. I'm so excited to be here.
Without the mic also, you're fine. Without the mic also,
Anyway. So I'm really happy to be here. I think, like we said.
Sandeep, I think.
Hello. Okay. I think I can hear myself. Okay. Oh God, I hate this. So, like Gurman said, Rasagy said, we started off VizChitra with the WhatsApp group, and it was so much fun to see it come to life. And now we're having our first in-person event, so I'm really excited, and this panel is something that I'm really enthusiastic to hear about, because being a recent grad myself, I think this is something that all of us wherever we are, if you're changing careers or if you're like recent students, it's something that we think about. It's something that we want to like hear from people who have crossed over and have built up a reputation. It's just nice that we're able to do this. So I want to get right into this. Towards the end of the panel, we'll have a section for audience Q&A. So if at any point you have any questions, I would like you to just remember them, and we'll get back to you when we get to that section. All right. So I'm going to start introducing our panelists, our wonderful panelists, and I'm going to start off with Sandeep. Sandeep is a senior product manager. Before this, he worked at Cisco, Oracle, Google, Nutanix. So all the tech giants that you can think of, he's worked there, and he's built design teams and cultures there. I'm so happy to have him here. Beyond technical expertise, he's very passionate about design mentorship and community building. So really happy to have you here. Thank you. Have a seat. The next person I would like to introduce is Amit. Amit is B.Tech from IIT Delhi, and he did his management degree from IIM Ahmedabad. So he comes from a very different world, and now he's teaching DataViz at places like NIT, IIM. And he's very enthusiastic about teaching workshops. He takes DataViz workshops at places like The Fifth Elephant and Strata. So happy to have you here too.
Can I add to that? How many of you have been in a class where Amit has taught?
Oh God. Then that last part did not like. Okay. For our next panelist, I would like to welcome Ipsa. Ipsa is a scientist turned science communicator. She did her PhD in molecular biology from IISc. And now through her creative practice, she makes zines, art, illustrations, diagrams to make complex scientific ideas accessible. It's her fascinating practice. She was also at Srishti. She started Srishti, Azim Premji University. So really happy to have you here too. And last but not least, my boss and founder and director of VizChitra Labs. VizChitra Labs is India's first dedicated information design agency. And before this, Gurman worked at teams like Hindustan Times, Reuters. At Hindustan Times, she also helped develop one of India's first tech-savvy data journalism teams. So she has a fascinating background, and now she runs a business, and she also mentors people and teaches people. So yeah, that's the panel. I'm really excited to now start. I think we have such a diverse group of people. So the way is, I have some questions of my own, and I'm lucky enough that they've given me the chance to just yap. So I'm going to do that. And I have my own questions. So to start off with, I think what I've realized, now I'm going to face you guys because I'm talking to you. What I've realized over the past few years is I don't think anyone chooses DataViz. DataViz happens to them, right? Information design, everyone that I've talked to so far, DataViz happened to me. I think DataViz also happened to you. And given your backgrounds, it's kind of evident that it did happen. So the first thing I would like to start off with is, what was your unconventional entry point into this field? And what was since you were transitioning into something or you were starting off with it, what skill did you bring from your previous experience which really helped you? So I'm going to start off with Sandeep here to maybe give a shot at this question and tell us a little bit about how you got started.
Sure. Sorry, I'd love to share mics till we try to fix the other one.
Oh, no worries. Can folks hear me? So, thanks for the question. And I'm super privileged to be part of this panel and also to be on the first ever event. Thank you for having me here. So, my journey started back in 2004. And I started my career as a visual designer. And I was working for a company which was back then called e-learning space, which is edtech space now. And as a visual designer, our job was to take instructional design content, which was written by instructional designers, and we used to make courses for people so that big thing that we used to talk about was learnability, not usability. I didn't know usability as a word back then when I started my career back in 2000. And at some point, I realized that there's so much of information that is out there that there's got to be a better way to present this information. So almost accidentally, I started figuring out ways to represent the information in a better format. And I think somewhere after spending about 4 years, I kind of realized there is a term for it. There is an industry for it. And it wasn't so known because I think we didn't have too many portals which talks about information design as such. But back in 2004, I got introduced by someone, I don't recollect now who actually introduced this to me. But there was a company, and those of you who know me, I've spoken about this a lot. There was a company back in US called Explain, Xplane, and they were the first visual thinking company. And here's me, 4 years experience. I actually wrote to them saying, I want to work with you. Little did I know about how it is going to happen. But they politely replied back saying it's not going to happen because we are a very small company based out of St. Louis and stuff like that. But I think my interest just grew from that moment. And then I realized that actually there is a very structured way of really looking at stuff. And of course, fast forward back into 2015, I got introduced to Chakradhar from NID and kind of realized there is a very disciplined way of doing things. It was absolutely accidental in my scenario. But I started appreciating that, and I think later it kind of helped me to hire the kind of talent that I ended up hiring. Because I think it's almost with that accidental stream, I figured out there's so much potential in this. And that's how I started.
That's fascinating. Yes, Amit. Actually, the thing I have over here is you work at like agencies like AD Carney, Booz and Company, management consulting, right? So how does one go from management and consulting and business to now teaching DataViz and being enthusiastic about storytelling? And
yeah, so that's right. So 10 years or 10-ish years I spent in India and Europe working for management consulting. And when you join consulting, you're basically, straight out of business school, you don't learn, you don't know anything about the world, right? But one thing that you have, because you are part of a project team, obviously you have people to guide you, is to really create a data-driven view of the world, right? So you take data, you kind of transform it, you understand the company much more, and then you have to drive the change, right? So how do you drive the change in a company? You're an external consultant. So how do you drive the change? Locally people say, "Bhai, deck bana do." Let's make a deck. But basically you have to communicate out of the many paths that the company can take, what are the many paths, which is the one path that you want to suggest. So you have to do a lot of communication, change management. As I'd like to say in a physics analogy, change the vector of the organization, either the speed or the direction. Now, the way you do that is by crafting a story which has a mix of both data, visualization, diagrams, all information visualization slide. Maybe the medium is PowerPoint, an Excel sheet, but that's how you do it. That's how I learned. And consulting is a very mentorship driven, like Purane Zamane mein jaise, you have craft. You learn it from other people. They teach you how to do it well. So over time you have made, unfortunately, way too many decks and learned about all of that, right? So that I did for about 10 years. And then I came back to India from Europe. And I said, okay, let's do something on my own. As a single person, what do you know? I know Excel, I know PowerPoint. Okay. I know how to tell storytelling with data. That was the thing I started with. And I tried other things also. I did oral storytelling courses also at Kathalya here to try and understand what storytelling is. But then I still realized, okay, data storytelling nobody does. Nobody has a clue. Consultants do it for a living. Let us teach that. So I started to teach that. And it started as like, okay, how do we think about so? And then I kind of learned a little bit more about, okay, what's the theory behind academic theory about data visualization? A little bit more from a CS, HCI perspective, those kind of topics. And then I got into starting to teach that stuff. Over time, analytics became more important, ML became, AI became, wo bhi padha diya, So, in all of this teaching style, so one of the things is like, how do you visually explain something? Because teaching is about building a ladder of abstraction for people to climb. So how do you help them to understand one concept after the other? So that skill started from consulting, and then over doing many bad workshops, and then struggling through it, you also started to learn how to visually do, or what you just mentioned, instructional design, right? Like, how do you design a workshop that can learn? So that's how I entered in it. Like, if you noticed, I was at the end here because काफी time हो गया ये करते हुए. So basically I said I did all the studying in the last century, and this century I've been making and teaching this stuff. So, and thank you to all the students that came, who had the...
Are these current students or are they like former students? Former, okay.
Fans.
Yeah. You do this long enough. That's how you build. So they'll tell you the real story later.
So one thing that I've learned from Amit, like working at VizChitra for the past few months, is the management, like the terms and like the jargon. And I subconsciously now start using it, like let's get tactical. Like we get like even in team meetings with people, I'm talking about getting tactical. You know? So, yeah, I mean, I've learned from Amit too. Yeah. Ipsa, if you will.
Yeah, what was your question? Sorry.
So what I want,
Unusual
your
journey.
unconventional entry point.
Right. So my journey started as an academic person. I was a PhD student in a lab, and then decided that's not the life for me. I can't be on the bench any longer, and that's how I had to think about what do I want to do. So one thing I knew how to do is think about science, write about science, talk about science, and what I did like also to do was draw. And then I got a very cool postdoctoral opportunity where what I got to do was to think about how to visualize certain biochemical processes and molecular processes using hand drawing as a method to understand how that molecule works, how that molecule looks, and that was my entry into science visualization. How I got that opportunity was because I was complaining that, hey, illustrator kind of people don't get to do things with academia in India in a conference in Pune. And I was just whining on a table with some scientists and students. And then I got a call next week. My postdoc mentor decided that he can make that space for me. So it was truly an accident, yeah.
That's very cool though.
It's a book.
Yeah.
Self-promotion,
So one of the things that we did during the postdoc was my mentor and I, we decided that we'd make a picture book about how and why animals change color, which was a way for us to think about how do we represent processes at multiple scales in biology, and that was the work that I did, yeah.
So I studied journalism. I was doing my master's in journalism at Columbia University, and when I went there, my undergrad is also in journalism. I'm not learning design, computer science, data, nothing. So when I was doing my master's, you have to choose one thing in your first semester, which is audio, video, photo, or data. Like you have to pick one of the four as a skill-based course you have to take. It's like, okay, I know audio, I can edit audio, I know video, I can shoot and edit video, I know, okay, photo also is okay. What is this fourth thing? I don't know. So I took it. I took that, and maybe there was data 1 and data 2. Data 1 was Excel, data 2 was R. So I was like, ये 1 नहीं 2 करना है. So then it was like, okay, prerequisite, you need to know stats. So I asked the professor, what do you mean by stats? It's like, you should know what confidence intervals and p-values are. I did not know what confidence intervals are. But I said, okay, that I know. So I went home, I spent like 1 weekend and studied what p-values and confidence intervals are. And ended up with data 2. Learned R in that course, was cool, had fun. I was like, okay, this is interesting. And after that, because I was learning this new thing, I wanted to apply it everywhere. So other courses also, I'm doing data story. So there's this off the news course where the idea is you have to do a second, like Abi breaking news has come. Next day, what will you write about it? So you have to think beyond the immediate. So in that also I'm doing data stories. So that happened. So I made my regular journalism degree into a data journalism degree. Because I was enjoying something. And then what the changing point was a class where there was this professor by the name of Michael Keller who taught me JavaScript. So it was called interactive design and storytelling, and the idea was how do you do exactly what I do today And when I went to the first lecture in that class, when Michael Keller showed me all the different things you could do with the skills, I was like, shit, this is why I came here, this is what I want to do. It was really a click, and I know very few people get that early on in their life, that hit moment, like I want to do that. But that happened for me, and yeah, that was that. And after that, I am today, I think, the only person who came out of my entire batch that year that does this. So I'm an anomaly. Other people did end up doing that. Or yeah, bas? Yeah, that is how it happened for me.
Thank you. No, it's like I said, DataViz kind of happens, and tech, business, journalism, science, right? It's crazy, and also it makes you feel good that you're not going to be out of place in the space like this, because you can still leverage the kind of skills that you have, right? So my next question is towards Sandeep, and I have two questions over here. I'm going to ask it in two parts. I want to ask about a corporate setting, and then I want to ask about freelancing, because some of you have also freelanced before and have your own clients, right? So I would like, how did you, in a corporate setting, how did you kind of convince the team or the company that these skills are valuable? And how can I start developing this culture, to put resources into developing this culture, right? It's in some places, what is the first time that this was kind of happening? And what were the challenges in a space like that, hiring people of a certain caliber or setting up with this kind of culture?
Great question. I mean, I have to literally go back and think, how did it start? I think back in Cisco, I got introduced to dashboards. And this side of me about information visualization, suddenly I realized that, here it's not about, so that's when I kind of figured out difference between the Stephen Few's of the world and the Edward Tufte's of the world. And I was only sort of, up until then, was exposed to the Edward Tufte information is beautiful in a very different way, a lot of pixels and all. But then suddenly when I started thinking about dashboards, I'm like, yeah, the space is very, very limited. You can't really do whatever that you were thinking. And the pixel to noise ratio, or whatever that we call it, that was very, very important. So I literally, for my first dashboard project, had gone through Perceptual Edge website, every single workshop, every single PDF that was out there, taking 3 weeks. And I said, I really need to know this. And I think that changed my perspective about how dashboard should be done differently. Fast forward that to my next job, which was in Nutanix. I kind of figured out that we were dealing with, again, a very niche B2B space. Nutanix was into data infrastructure management and servers and all of that. And thanks to our CEO, who was very, very particular about design and just having design, having a lot of play and place in a lot of other thinking. We thought, we had actually visited NID because we wanted to hire folks from NID. And my boss and me, we happened to meet Chakradhar sir, because I kind of knew him from Cisco days and all of that. And that was the time when I actually saw they had put up their work out there, and here's my boss thinking, this looks interesting. I'm like, yeah, this is the course, they have a course and stuff like that. I think what that did was, we often talk about show and tell in our industry. It actually proved a point indirectly to my boss that there is something of this sort that we can do within our company, because we were dealing with a lot of data. And I think thanks to that, we ended up hiring our first intern from NID. So to come back and connect this story to what you're asking as a question is, I always feel that in the enterprises or companies that you work for, you need to have an anchor who can understand and believe what someone can do. 2016, we had our first intern, the person got converted, and HasGeek, who is there in the audience here, he was probably, third year, 2019, I guess. And then you spent, 6 years now in Nutanix? 5.5. So I was asking him last week when we met, there is still DataViz work that he's doing. And it is so satisfying to see something that we started back in 2016, it's 2025. There's 9 years worth of DataViz related work, which I did not think that would happen. And I remember early days we used to constantly have a conversation. Hoga kya? DataViz ka kaam. I'm like, let's take month by month basis because we really don't know whether it's going to be done. So, in summary, I think you need to have an anchor who is firm believer that someone can do something. And of course, you need to have the opportunistic mind to figure out where this can click, which is not from a data or design standpoint, but from business standpoint. And I think in the first internship, we had our intern working on a project which was a live project. Back then, it was called a production environment, and the person actually ended up filing a patent for that. Not just working on a project which is live, but also filing a patent, really presenting his work to the CEO. It's a public limited company by then, okay? And all of that kind of proved the point that there is merit in hiring these kind of skills and people who will have these skills. And I think that just created pattern. I ended up hiring folks at Google as well from DataViz background. I haven't done a good job at Uber hiring folks from DataViz, but I still feel there is immense opportunity. But yes, you need to be someone as a leader that I feel, and Rasagy and I was chatting about that 2 years ago, that you need to create that anchor as a leader to make this space for people so that they can come in and do their best.
So it all depends on having that anchor and the good luck of having an anchor.
When you're an IC, you need to rely on someone, but when you're a leader, you should become one.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I'll come back to. I have another question follow up to this. But so freelancing, right? A lot of you, when you transitioned, like you said, you do consulting, and Ipsa, I think you also do freelancing, freelance work and Gurman obviously. So what are the hard parts about kind of proving yourself to? I want you to think back, and actually what Sandeep said, I think in these questions it's useful to answer from the benefit of hindsight, but also try to put yourself back to year 1, year 2, and talk about some of those fears and some of those problems. So yeah, when you started off, maybe Ipsa, you can lead this one. What were the challenges? How did you, was there like a particular breakthrough moment, turning point with the project? Okay, after this, it's settled, now I can do this for a living, right? So something about that.
I mean, so when I started, I started first as an illustrator before I started doing the kind of work that I do now. I mean, I was still drawing, biological stuff, but, and I was doing it because I wanted to relieve the pressure of having been cooked in a PhD lab. That happens. And then, this junior of mine from grad school, he said, hey, we are doing this event, can we put up some of your work? I said, okay, you can put up, but can I also sell postcards of some of these? He said, okay. And I was expecting 0 people to buy it, and then I was selling them for something like $20, and I made $5,000 that day. So then I was like, okay, this can work out. I should figure out how to do this. And so that was the time when I decided that maybe something like this can happen as a part of the living. So the struggle for me was, or is even still, is that I work still with mostly scientists and science institutes. That's most of my clientele. And what happens is that they don't have money to spend on projects like this. They may have the desire, they may have the intent, but because the money comes in a very regulated way, what the budget heads allowed them to do. So money is one big challenge, which is why throughout my career I've had other jobs to support this practice. I don't think of this as my job, so to speak. Yeah. So to be honest here. Sorry if that disappoints someone.
So I think 2 parts, right? In consulting time, there is no selling required. This is a skill you are measured on. Like, you get good at communicating. No one talks about DataViz. You are communicating all the time. Every deck is like 50 iterations already, like every level you would do. So there is no question anyone coming out of it would have good skills around communication, making visualizations, making charts, telling that story, right? When I started, so like I'm talking now 2010, 11, I started to do that and like do it on my own. So pehle I tried ki bhai consulting mein kaise beche. Like, so one is to start a team, which Gurman will talk about what the challenges of that is, right? You can hire more people, you can build a team, because otherwise it's very hard to do a project, right? So I said teaching asan hai. Let us build the future generation of people. No, teaching is easy. But teaching you have to sell. So I think, how do you sell? Okay, so you have to find some pitch. So 2 things I did, I think. One was the storytelling with data. Kurtzy, Hans Rosling and some of that. All of these guys were like, storytelling with data is important. No one can teach that. No one actually, very few people teach that part, right? So they said, ek to ye storytelling with data ka ho kya gaya. So let's use that. The second I do, which I think is like I relied completely on inbound sales. So I basically went and like, I think Zainab is here. Zainab called me for the first fifth telephone in 2012. And I went and started talking about visualization. So over the next 3-4 years, I talked a lot about visualization there, give talks. Rasagy saw me there, invited me to NID to teach. So things happen from that, then people get to know. People I teach eventually become people who were looking for some educator to come do something. So it's all inbound, okay? This is like, I've never really gone out and said, ye client chahiye. Koi na koi request aayega, wo bhi I'm very bad at fulfilling, but I will say, okay, maybe I'll do.
So ever something that went wrong, like you wanted a client but you could not pitch it? Like...
No, so many went wrong. So first time I did with like selling process.
Initially, yes. Like, and which in hindsight you were like, I could have done that differently.
So initially I thought, storytelling. What do I know about storytelling? Right? Oral storytelling. There is a whole business storytelling, oral storytelling, non-data related. So I joined Kathalaya. I worked for, I learned how to do storytelling. Everyone was talking, Bachcho wali story, and I was here talking about the Gutenberg, like a very businessy kind of story. So I did a first workshop, one in Infosys with them. So I'll tell this example. And there was a storytelling workshop. First 2 days, Geeta was doing, Geeta Ramanujan, and it was fantastic. Like she's obviously a teacher, educator, very good at teaching story. Then kafi business wala angle ye handle karenge. And I left my consulting thing and I tried to do what she was doing from a business storytelling. And it flopped so badly. The guy when I called back said, no, we don't want to tell you feedback, we'll call her to tell feedback. Right? It was so bad. Okay, because I was trying to be someone that I am not good at. I can do a little bit of oral storytelling, but it's not my skill. So then I realized ki, bhaiya, stick to your lane, stick to data storytelling, and do that. So like that, many experiences, many workshops go bad, many times teaching you try things and they don't work and something, so you learn something over time, right? But lots of those examples of stuff, we can talk more, but I think Gurman can give a little bit of example ki how to start building a business with people.
Aman, is that a comment on you?
No. My Gen Z employees are not like Gen Z.
Gen Z employees.
There are Gen Zs in the crowd.
तभी मैं बोल रही हूँ ऐसा नहीं है. But perception, public perception is poor. So they need to fix it.
मतलब ऑडियंस पे डाल दिया.
मेरे वाले अच्छे हैं. So, and I read this somewhere recently, that a lot of creatives start a studio because they are good at something. But to start a studio, you really don't need to be good at something, good at that thing. You need to be good at business, which are two absolutely different things. And I think that's also true about being a freelancer. The tricky part about, and I first freelanced for 2 years before starting Revisual. So I didn't just start Revisual. I quit my job and I started freelancing with the idea कि एक साल करके देखते हैं. If it's okay, great. Otherwise I'll look for a job again. So I really did it as an experiment at the point where I had my loans paid off. Student loan was cleared. I had savings in the bank. I knew that even if I didn't make a single penny, I could sustain myself for quite some time. So when I had that clarity and I had that cushion, first of all, that's when I started to freelance. So, and when I started doing that, within 6 months I realized that it was sustainable. I wouldn't make the same amount that I was making at Reuters, but I was making enough. And the thing that I liked about it was the fact that I was able to merge teaching as well as application of work ka balance. And these two activities trigger different parts of your brain, so it becomes a more fulfilling exercise. When you teach and you think, you zoom out and you think about the industry as a whole, which in turn also improves your practice. So that mix, I extremely enjoy it. So within 6 months I had the clarity, I think this can work. But what was tricky was that sometimes I was still learning how to do the business part of things. How do I reach out to people? How do I pitch myself? How do I talk about how can I solve your problem? Like all those are skills I didn't have. And sort of acquired on the job, and that's the harder piece. I think making the chart and making the graphic is the easy thing. And then another thing that is very tricky as a freelancer is pricing. How do you price? First you price, person gets scared, they're like, no, you're too expensive, gone. Then you price, person says, yes, absolutely, you're like, shit, I priced too low. So hitting that right price with the right person, we're still figuring it out, to be very honest. It's you do A/B testing and you figure that out over time. Yeah, that's sort of the reason why I built a team was because I was stupid, but I was stupid, crazy, whatever you may call it, had easy, aram se zindagi kat rahi thi, sab theek tha. So there's actually my husband who... It was this stupid man that I married. He's like, I think you should build a company. Because if, try it, maybe you'll like it. So Aman was actually my first hire. By the way, he was the first one to be dragged into all of this. But the reason I started building a team was because the kind of projects, as Amit was also saying, you can't do projects without a team. You need people to drive something. And another thing is if you're running the business, if you're getting clients, if you're talking to clients, you can't execute. So that's another piece. So yeah, that's how I started building a team. It's been interesting, the same thing that of a nascent industry in India where people don't, so there's a DataViz studio in Montreal called Voila that's run by Francis Gagnon. I met him and he said this thing that has stuck with me. It's like DataViz is an industry that has very high need but very low demand. So everybody needs it but they don't realize it. So selling that and learning how to sell that has been interesting. I'm figuring it out. It's fine, you learn. The good thing is about this process that I enjoy the most, that I learn something new every day, not necessarily about DataViz, but about business, other skills. And I enjoy the business part. Like that's the biggest thing. To me, talking to a client, pitching to a client is not like draining. I want to sit and make a chart. I don't mind not making a chart. I think of my work as empowering other people to be creative, and my job is necessarily no longer creative. I only make deck and write emails and just go and meet people and things like that. Inbound wala problem hamara bhi hai. Abhi, me too. That's my next target to solve. How to go do more outbound. But it's a process. You learn. Yeah.
So we'll go right because I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit more because this is important. So what is, and we have kind of had these conversations, but what are some skills when you're hiring especially, and we'll talk about this too, what do you think is an overrated skill and what do you think is something that it's unattractive but that's why people don't focus on it. So when
Unattractive.
Like it's not a flashy skill, right? It's something that people need to have, but so when you were building a team, right, what are some, ये तो मेरे ऊपर आ गया,
मेरे में ऐसा क्या है, क्या
नहीं, अच्छा, actually forget about building a team. But what are some overrated skills which can be still learned on a job, which you don't necessarily need to come into this field with? And what are some skills that it's actually better to come into this field with, which people don't talk about?
I think one very hard skill to find, two skills that are more softy wale skills, but I really look for are curiosity. I think with DataViz, it's all about communication and communicating concepts and communicating insights and findings, and that can only happen if you as a person want to get to the bottom of everything. So I think that is something that I really look for. Another thing that's sort of hard to gauge a person on, but the ability to be able to detach themselves from the situation and look at from the lens of this is a problem I need to solve. I think that's another skill as a designer, as a communicator generally. I think that's very important. It's about you. How do you follow the brief? And if you think something needs to be fixed, you express yourself and you figure out here's an alternative and all of those things. But you really approach it as a problem to be solved. The more technical sort of thing of encoding and this and that I think can be learned. That is easy to learn. The hardcore chart type, which is the right chart for something and things like that. Those things can be learned. Being data literate may be important. That's important. Storytelling is incredibly important to be able to decipher the difference between a good story and a bad story. Like, this is easy to understand. This, if I put it in a certain way, it will work. So recently I was interacting with students. I said that, read more, watch movies, watch theatre, just see what a good story is like. And it will come naturally to you that when you're talking with charts, this makes sense, this structure makes sense. So thinking about structure, thinking about communication, those are some of the more harder to teach things because they happen over time. The more technical, hard things that this is sequential skill, this is categorical skill, this is this encoding, you can learn in like 2 weeks, that's fine.
What about code versus no code? I'm gonna ask you guys. Do people need to code? Actually, Amit,
Amit is a great person to answer.
Do people need? Because I think that's something that people think about. At least they think about. So AI.
So I think this question a lot of students have, right? Should you code especially from the design background, right? Like coding is required or not required. Unfortunately, in DataViz, there are so many tools. There's no like one Figma to rule them all, right? Like there is, like you want to do cartography, there's something else. You want to do something else. You want to do like mapping. You want to do exploration, different tools, right? So, for me, if you are really want to go deeper into it, make something which is more creative. Want to experiment with non-formal, different ways to think. Then you have to go one level deeper than what everyone does. And which normally in database context means you can go and write the code, whether it's processing, P5, whether it is, D3, observable, jo bhi hai, like some way to learn it. For me, code is just another way to do things. Right? Like, pehle zamane mein Visual Basic hota tha to automate Excel, wo bhi kar diya. So code is just a tool. I mean, it's just a language to define and say what to do something. I think people make too much of a scene about whether I code or not code. It is not important. How can I take my idea out and represent it is more important. Whether that requires to learn any tool, I will learn. If that requires me doing code, I will learn that also, right? Now, yes, I teach ML, to uske liye to aise hi Python, but that is a separate question. But basically, you have to be one level lower than everyone else, right? Go deep. Be curious, go deep, make new things. And you cannot do it with just the draggy, droppy UI, GUI tools because other than Tableau, which came from a research background, Stanford, there has been very limited GUI innovation in this area, right? Like Tableau was...
Any opposition to this? any
Yes.
opposition key, it's important to go one level deeper. Is it important to then have that skill, like of code, or can you go one level deeper in something else as well?
Can go. Video banao. Like there are all these other mediums. So, yeah, I think it's not necessary. Can be done without. Because it's also about, if we say that, we are saying everything in the world you have to do, which you don't. You have a beautiful room with beautiful people, find collaborators and collaborate. So maybe the way of going deep, and that's where you need to build a team, is so that you can go deep. That was the actually idea, that I know little bit of code, I know little bit of design. My only core skill is storytelling. Him very good at code, Divya Swati very good at design. So the idea was that great designer, great developer, work together, figure it out. So I think that's the answer, because if you try to be like meko design bhi karna hai, meko code bhi karna hai, it's very hard to be very good at something, and it will also take like a ridiculous amount of time for you to do what you are trying to do. Huh? Yeah? Targeting.
From a hiring perspective, no, hard skills and soft skills.
Sure.
Something about that.
Personally, I think hard skills are overrated. I think soft skills, especially going back to AI, soft skills are going to make or break, in my opinion. You stole my answer about curiosity. I have added one more word in the recent times. It's continuous curiosity, and I think continuous curiosity is going to take us really far. So I've said this in the past. My hiring philosophy is attitude over skills. I feel if you have the attitude, you will learn any skill. Going back to what you said, especially AI will, again, although I stood on the other side when there were questions about AI, but I think what I'm really excited about is, as long as you have the curiosity, as long as you know what you're there for, you probably don't know how to code, but you can still get it done through AI. So you will get some aid from that. For that, what you need is not a skill, but an attitude. And you need curiosity, are you asking the right question or not? So the other thing that I feel, we were chatting about this earlier, is overrated is design process. Everybody talks about process, but everybody follows the same process, but the outcome is different. And people, especially students, please do not waste time talking about the process, because you probably do not have any different process than anybody else out there. Just get to the ultimate outcome and prove what you have is actually better than whatever else is out there, or why it is working for someone that you're designing it for. That's point number one. Two, which is again undervalued, not overrated, but undervalued, is communication and presentation. I think we designers are uniquely positioned, be it companies or freelance worlds, where you will most likely be the only glue between so many different parties, like cross-functional stakeholders. And if you can't talk, if you can't present, if you can't sell your ideas, it is extremely hard for someone else to be constantly there with you, who is going to give you ammunition so that you can be there. So one of the most underrated skills of designers that one must actually focus a lot of energy on is presentation. How are you saying it? How are you selling it? How are you subtly persuading people to think about something? I actually felt if someone would have told me that you need to know presentation skills way early in my life would have been very, very different. So I feel that is single most skill apart from, of course, the curiosity and all of that, that I think everyone must acquire. And eventually, going back to what you said about the code or no code, I think languages do not matter anymore, I guess. I think the only language that will matter is English. You tell your bot what you want, and most likely bot will do most of it. I mean, the degree of, I feel the execution, the specialty execution will have its own place, but the general execution will probably be handed over to the AI. So what you then need, what is the unique skill that you have? You can probably go broad, more horizontal. You can have multiple skills, curiosity across multiple areas, but then you need to have one or two where you're deep. So the T shape has become a pie shape now, or maybe it'll have multiple vertical angles. Yeah, the shape is constantly changing. So that's what I feel about it.
Okay, that's pie shape is the first time I've heard that. I've heard T shape, this is pie shape.
Can I do one?
Yeah.
Can I do one rebuttal? Or one is point on why coding is. So the idea. See, I use this example. Some of the students may know this, right? When you were doing graphic design, you would know different types of printing. You would see how ink is made. You know the medium. You know how it comes on different paper. All of that stuff you know. So you are deep into that craft. Like, how deep do you want to go in the craft? Whether that means going to and learning 4-color offset printing or knowing that hand batik kaise hota hai, whatever is needed, you will go deeper and learn this, right? From my perspective, that is how I think about code. If you're doing digital design, right? What is your medium other than
Figma.
some Figma? Other than Figma, kya hai?
Figma is a tool.
Figma is a tool, right? But it's a one tool, right? Don't use it as a hammer. Like everything I want to use may Figma. Figma may not be able to do some of the stuff. Okay, they may be a sponsor, I shouldn't say so much. but they haven't built a DataViz capability, right, in it. So, Kiran, please edit.
Before we lose any more sponsors. Oh yeah, I'm gonna pause here for a couple of questions if you have any.
Can I add to what you said?
Yeah, sure.
So I think
Last rebuttal.
your answer reminded me of this idea that I always used to say, and maybe I didn't sound as if I'm supporting the technology. I actually believe all designers should know technology. You got to be, that's the vehicle in which your designs are going to be delivered, so there is no way around that. Whether are you going to get into really coding it all by yourself? I think that's the nuance point. But if you don't know how you design, like going back to the printing example, if you don't know what is possible in print, you're just making an art form, which is on canvas. Ultimately, the technology is the delivery vehicle, and you must know what are the limitations and what are not. Whether you end up getting into it, that I think will slightly vary in terms of whether somebody is skilled enough or not.
Code literate and data literate versus
Yes. I actually feel if you know...
I think this is my background of consulting, right? We have to do everything. Everyone does everything.
No, I think there are definitely
That's where
advantages
it
of
comes
it.
from.
Because you suddenly feel you can do so many things all by yourself. But I think my point was on the AI, some of that you can offload. You don't have to do it, but you definitely know technology.
I agree, and I think we've taken a design kind of stand here, but there are people who are actually on the other side as well, who have trained just data analysts and want to get to the other side of design, right? So I think the one level deeper is just to get to the other side. What I know and what I want to know, I think is kind of a summary of what we talked about. But yes, just audience questions at this point. If someone has, yes.
Just wanted to share mine. So my first exposure to data visualization, this goes back to 2005. I had 2 MS degrees, one MS in electrical and my second MS was in psychology, human factor psychology. After I did that, I was interviewed at Oracle's information visualization or data visualization lab. And I still remember in the interview, they showed me this tree map. They had mapped out the entire US stock market as a tree map. So I was like, it was fascinating. Right? So after, I didn't get the job. That's another thing. Because, I wasn't exposed to that level of visualization or whatever. So of course, in psychology and all, you need to understand data, you need to do the whole, P thing and all. I don't do that anymore now. But yeah, so I was exposed to that level of data analysis, but not the visualization. So after that, I took a personal interest, and because I knew the capabilities and all that, right? So I started getting deeper into it. I started to actually collect all these data visualizations and put together in a deck. And in 2009, I got an opportunity to attend Edward Tufte's workshop. He does workshops throughout the US. He did it at least. And it was 2 or 3 day workshop. It costed a bomb. The company wasn't willing to pay for it, but I put it out of my pocket. I attended it, and it was fascinating. The kind of stories he told. Edward Tufte is like Then I took a bunch of, he sold a bunch of books, he didn't. So I bought those, I brought it back to India, it's still there with me. Then I started from the collections which I did of all these information visualizing charts and all that, right? I put together a workshop kind of a course kind of thing. So then I started to teach that as well whenever I got an opportunity. Then I think after a few years, I ran into Rasagy. Okay, and he was doing much more cooler stuff with data and all of that. I'm like, Rasagy sahab ke samne mera kya? मैं share कर रहा हूँ. I told that I'll share story.
But let's, yeah.
So that's story. So after I met Rasagy, I was like, okay, he's doing the coolest stuff. So I didn't propose and didn't teach. That's what I want to share. So that's how I know Rasagy and.
But going back in 2005, there was this DataViz lab. That I think was the coolest inside.
I was not doing any such cool stuff, please.
Questions.
It's cool. So,
Yeah, but if you want to talk about cool, there are like people in this room who have known people who made pre-map. So we will not go into like anecdotes yet. I think after the event we should do anecdotes. Questions that we.
Who are some people who you follow and like they are your inspiration?
Who is this directed towards?
Like to the group, to the panel.
We have a diverse panel, so you have to choose one.
Okay, I'll ask Amit.
Amit, okay.
Most relevant for him. Yeah, that's right.
So I think, I have read lots of these books, even kind of read the books and all of that. Like Tough and Stephen Few were initially interesting, but their whole minimalism is like another style. Like no style is also style, right? So their whole approach to minimalism is also something that I have moved away from. Clarity of thinking, yeah, great. So I follow a lot of, I can say my inspiration are a lot of educators coming more from the HCI and CS background, right? Because that's something that appeals to me. So Jeffrey Heer, the University of Washington, Tamara Munzar from VAT, Visualization Analysis and Design, great academic book, right? And I teach,
British Columbia, University of British Columbia.
UBC now, University of British Columbia, yeah. Vancouver, I got the city right, but yes, maybe University of Vancouver, वहाँ पे और भी होगा, but University UBC के. So a lot of these guys, some of the students from those labs, Jeffrey's labs, Bostock and all of them are there, but even Arvind Satyanarayan from CSAL, MIT. So again, my bias is a lot of educator, people who teach, post their courses, and in education they all post all their lectures and all. So I like those.
Also build tools.
And they build tools, right? So Jeffrey here does build amazing tools, Vega Lite, all of those stuff that I have tried to put it onto these my NIT students also sometimes. कि भाई सीख लो. So those are my inspirations.
Do we have someone else? Okay. Can we get them a mic? Is this towards a specific person? Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, my question is from Sandeep. Because I've been in the corporate for quite some time, and there has been constant struggle with the data team, to work with the data team, and the importance of the right data visualization, which is usually ignored in big corporates because it's a service company, and less emphasis is shown on how it is being presented than what it is being presented. And then that's where I think the usage of Tableau and Power BI, which has been one of the things which has been prevalent in industry, mostly Power BI. My question would be that how do you deal with, rather than educating, promoting or kind of advocating about dealing with the internal folks itself, and then they come from quite heavy data background because they are data analysts and many other people, but it's about the representation of those stories, narratives which they want to put, because I've seen shittier work which my company produces.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, and I think what I have seen typically work, especially within the companies, this is generally not just for DataViz, but I think a general answer around design as well, that I think we designers have a tendency to talk different language. Almost, I'll give you an example of a different language. Think of designers talking Kannada and rest of the company talks in German. You will suddenly understand when you're trying to talk to people in two different languages, they of course will not understand. And the easier is if you actually end up picking up the language, what was the word that you said? You got it right. Tacticals, right? So suddenly Amit will now feel, oh, okay, this guy gets me. So, as simple as that goes a long, long way. The second is typically designers in the language also tend to focus on the aesthetics more than anything else. And I think that's another learning, that if you're going to talk about aesthetics, people are going to always look at you, oh, that's a design team, when I need you, I'll get in touch with you. The biggest differentiator is if you are actually coming across as someone who is trying to help the business. So in the data visualization context specifically, at Uber we also have a lot of data analysts and data scientists. What I've generally seen is where they stop is where you can start. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. They are absolutely great in terms of plotting a lot of data and data crunching, but I don't think they probably are having the right skills to convert that into something that is simple enough for people to understand. When I work with data scientists, I have to tell them, guys, wait, I just can't understand. I'm not a number person as much as you are. I think that is the value that we can add. So it is a complementary skill. It's not them versus us. I think we have to work with them. And I think the language also, then they are looking at you as, can you enhance my data? As opposed to, trying to take my data away and trying to represent it in one way. So you probably can't do what they are doing because that's not a skill that you have, and they can't do what you're doing. It's the combination, I think, that will go a long, long way. And then the result is when automatically will do the selling, like the inbounds. And that will, I think, work.
Right. So do you think that show and tell could make
Absolutely.
a difference? Okay.
Absolutely.
To add to that and to add to something, just one chota sa thing. I think the idea of doing something like VizChitra, both the conference and the community, drag those people in. Get them on the group, get them to attend the conference, get them to come to events like these, if possible, because let the virus spread. Because it's, when you come to, if say they come to the conference, they two, three talks about something that's like, oh shit, this is also possible. Oftentimes it's about, you tell people the possibility but they don't get it, you have to show it to them. So yes, get them to engage with the community, and that might help. Rasagy has also spoken about this before. Get your team leads to come to conferences, design conferences, DataViz conferences. Yeah, that.
Yeah, I had a question, kind of adding on to his. I also work in a corporate and also specifically a management consultancy. So my question is, like when you're doing work 8 hours a day, which is sometimes not necessarily you find it creatively fulfilling, how do you maintain that enthusiasm in your free time?
For Aman. That's a question for Aman.
Pick someone.
Choose Aman.
Both Sandeep and Amit, because they both spoke about
Passion.
Do you have free time?
We both keep talking a lot. Go ahead, you start.
Okay, so this is a kind of, I'll also answer it in the continuation to the previous answer. Some things that have worked for us in most of the companies, especially like going to the show and tell example that I gave, pick projects which nobody's ever interested in, just to prove your capacity. We have picked things where it was all internal project, it is maybe the company is trying to understand how much they are spending on, let's say, all the food and the beverages. typically these are Excels, and nobody cares beyond that. Can you have actually your point made from these projects which nobody is really talking about, and then suddenly make them the key stakeholders, like the center heads and engineering heads who are really maintaining the budget, suddenly realize, oh man, there is so much that can be done. So you need these easy early wins, low-hanging fruits to probably figure out what all is possible. That's one. Coming back to your question specifically, I think you always need to figure out if you are passionate enough to do something, how do you find that time? Like, if you ask me, yeah, everybody is busy, everybody has the equal amount of time, but then one is the energy that you spoke about. So I often talk about having an SOS kit. So everybody should have an SOS kit, and what I mean by that is, when you have fever, we all know what do we do? We probably go take paracetamol, whatever it is, right? But I think what we do not know is when we are down, when we don't have motivation, when we feel we are not having satisfaction from our work, we don't know what we need to do. The answer for all of us is going to be very different. And I think what is really important is for us to figure out in this journey, what is it that you will do to come back to feeling energetic. I'm into running and trekking, I go run when I'm super frustrated. But that's an SOS kit for me. Do I have time? No, I squeeze out time. I do at times a run which is in between two meetings. But I really do that because I figured out that is the only way I'm going to feel normal as a human being. I'm sure there's something that you all will know about yourself. If you don't, it's high time that we all know this for all of us, so that when you're going to get into this, everybody is going to get equally busy. The example what you're giving is very, very real. But then I can't give you a generic answer because what is applicable to me or for Amit is going to be very different for you. So it's for us to figure out what works for us, and what works for you might not be working for someone else. So it's a self-discovery, and that's the only way you will figure out. Like initially I used to paint, and I realized painting used to give me a lot of satisfaction because everything on the office front used to be horizontal vertical. And I said, I do not want to have horizontal vertical, I want to have curved lines. I'm talking about 2005, where rounded edges were also not existent. HTML, CSS even couldn't give me that. I'm like, what the heck, why should I keep myself stuck into this? So I started painting landscape. I'm not answerable to anybody, I'm just painting the way I want. But that gave me satisfaction back then. Then I figured out, oh, I should do something else. Now it's running. Again, it keeps evolving. My kit is evolved over time. But it's almost like an ongoing journey. There is no one answer that I can give you unless you have something to add.
So I think doing something that you're passionate about, like this is what I tell people, like pick a topic that you're passionate about, that you can stick around for a long time, even after the project is over, or even after your assignment is over, keep doing it, right? So it has to be something you're really passionate about. Then only you'll spend time on that, right? So that part goes without saying. But if, for me, this is like sadhana, right? Like you're not trying to get external validation. Any slide you make, any doc you make, will I be willing to sign my name to it, saying like a painter does, this is created by Amit Kapoor, right? It doesn't matter whether the other person appreciates it or not, right? So I may be creating yesterday for like these tickets. अब कोई document बन रहा है, nobody will read it, okay? I am only setting it up, I am only doing it, ठीक है अभी कर रहे हैं, but the document should look nice to me. It's my way of trying to learn and improve my skill. Okay, how do I represent it? If I'm making a slide, it's possible no one may look at it. So if we move away from looking at external validation and think of all the work we do, is your practice to improve yourself, is your sadhana. Are you done doing it? It doesn't matter. You make a slide something, you make a doc, you write a post, you tweet something, you video, did I do the best that I could on this? I don't find this issue of motivation. Like for me, it's not there. I'm always motivated about doing work. Because I love the work. It is already there. I love to teach. I am there 9 to 9 if people want me. The kids will be like, I'm sorry, I'm saying kids, students. Students would be like, too tired, like, ho gaya. I'm like, no, I'm here. Till you are here, I'm here. Okay, and when I'm there, I'm there. After that, I'm not there. Okay, which is also true. They will reach out, email, social media. I'm like, time nahi hai bhai. You have to choose what do you want to do. When I'm there, I'm there. So, to be motivated, for me, it is be there, be present when you're doing, do the work to the best of your own ability, grow as your own human being. Rest will happen on its own. Right? Like things will happen, life will come in. You have to do the same thing in other aspects of life, right? Not just data visualization. Like with people, with family, with work. You have to do all of that, right? Like a long-winded answer, but that's what I do. I don't know, like Sandeep is saying, whether that'll work for everyone, but that's what has worked for me so far. And I'm only trying to say how I can improve myself on that.
So speak on the here and not there and time up thing. I think do we have time for? Do we like? We can. Yeah, one more question. Last question, crisply, and I want it like at a panelist for panelist.
Okay, this is for Gurman. I want to ask, so you mentioned that there is a lot of need for data and communication, but people don't know that they need this kind of communication, right? So my question is, when do people come to you? At what stage of this journey do they come to you, and what is the end result that they walk away with when they work with you?
So the sooner a client comes to us, the better the result will be. But typically that doesn't happen. Typically a client comes to us and they say, 6 hafte kuch kar do. Right? And that's the worst thing to happen. I think now we have gotten comfortable at the point where I do think that I am comfortable saying no. What you're asking for is not fair to the project, to my team. It's just not fair. And eventually you will also not be happy with the result. So next time, give me this much time for this kind of, so it depends on the output, right? So if it depends on the scale of work. Sometimes our projects might take 3 months. They've also taken 6 months. They've also taken 2.5 days, if I'm not wrong. Those will be like chotu motu, something quick and easy. So but even then, I have seen even for the 2-3 day thing, clients have come to us weeks in advance. So this, because we are a tiny team, we also have to plan. We can't, do, uske liye bigger consultancies will have a bench where they'll pull in people so it gets more easier. But I think the good point would be to come to us when the client has clarity on at least the goals of the project. If not anything else, you should know why you want to do something. Sometimes clients come to us with a clear thing that we want a dashboard, we want a story, we want a print publication. Sometimes they don't. If they don't, then you should budget extra time for that. So when we do a 5 to 6 week discovery where we'll ideate concepts and figure out what's the output or structure or extent of work that you need. If you have complete clarity, that phase can be skipped. And then, so after that, we can get started. But if you're coming to us with a clear scope of work, you also should come to us with good, nice, beautiful data. Because again, if it's not beautiful, factor in extra time to clean it. So the more clarity the client has, the faster the output can be. The more unclear the client is, the more time will it take. Yesterday I was blessed to be in a client query that was a year in advance. So it will, if it comes through, that would mean that we can actually add more value to that. So that's the dream client. You think of an idea, you come to us, we can help make that idea better. Does that answer that?
Yes, I have one more question. I know it's very quick. What kind of stories do you like to tell?
What kind of stories do I like to tell?
Like preference.
I don't have any preference. I want to tell different stories. I want to tell the kind of stories I've not told before. Those are the kind of stories I prefer to tell. This is something new. I learn something new in the process.
But eventually I'm not telling stories, team is telling stories. But
Does your team have a preference?
Aman has lots of feelings. You can chat with Aman about feelings. Yeah.
I want to just say one thing for Aman, because Aman will not say. If you've gone to the VizChitra.com site and you've seen that Warnai and the interaction, that's all done by Aman, right? So all that, going to the site, you can go now, see all the clicks, that's all that he would probably not say that out, so I'm just saying it on his behalf. Yes, over to you to close.
Thank you. This was great. I had some more questions, but we can talk. I want to take some time just to like go around the room and talk with each other. You can come over here. We can talk to each other as well. I hope you also enjoyed this. I hope that I see all of you at the conference as well. And yeah, this was it. Rasagy, if you want to make some closing up.
Alright, thanks a lot to our wonderful panelists, big applause to them, and for Aman for doing this fabulous job. Aman, there are many things. This is the first time he's doing a panel, and I think he did a great job. So yeah, a lot of applause for that. I think an event like this is not possible without a help of a bunch of people, right? And so I wanted to at least name a few. I may miss a few more. I'm sorry about that in advance. I think first I want to thank Epic World, the venue hosts. They really made this space to have this conversation happen. There's Karthik, there's Nikhil, there is Jibin, Tangraj, and many more folks from the Epic World team as well here. We also had some really nice volunteers who answered the call when we needed them. So Sushmita and Sagne. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name right? Okay, cool. Helped us out with the cameras. Urmila, Shubhangi made sure they let the right people in. And then, the whole VizChitra thing has been an idea in a bunch of our minds, but it's only become possible because of one group of people called the HasGeek. So if you don't know them already, big round of applause to the HasGeek folks. There is Kiran, there is Zainab, there is another youngest member of our group also here. And they have really made sure that this conference, this community comes together. Especially like Nidhi, who stepped in and made a lot of logistics runs, etc. as well. So a big round of applause to them once more. And with this, I think we will try and wrap up. We do have a hard stop at 1. Karthik, a hard stop at 1, right? 1:15. So by 1 o'clock, you'll find me nicely nudging you. But till then, there is some small snacks that the Epic World team has graciously gotten us so that we don't keep nerding out on DataViz hungry. I will end with 2 reminders. One, the tickets are live. I do recommend getting the early bird earliest before it runs out. And the other bits are, we're of course looking for more sponsors. We already have a great space, but we do need to pay for it. So if you have companies, organizations, that you think should sponsor, if you feel your organization doesn't do a good job at making charts, like somebody said, get your organization to sponsor and get them to come. And then for some of you who want to help out, there is a volunteers form that has been shared. That is up there. You can submit, tell us what you want to volunteer for, as in what activity, what are you good at. It'll help us pick the right volunteers, and there'll be a bunch of work before the conference, during the conference, and after the conference. With that, thank you so much. Oh yeah, of course, we would love more feedback. This is a very simple, very short form, just 2 or 3 questions. Tell us what we could do better, and if you have other stronger opinions, meet us and tell us. With that, thanks a lot. Thank you everyone. Enjoy the evening.